Imaginary lines are shown between the hostility towards Trump
y la oportunidad de otros para forjar nuevos caminos.
Buscamos la respuesta a las inquietudes del siglo XXI.
between borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
New reports show the Pentagon is preparing for an all-out war with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. This includes launching major military drills and deploying thousands of additional forces to Guam, Japan, and South Korea, including additional B-52s, the aircraft that drops nuclear weapons. Top U.S. officials have confirmed Trump's belligerent threats, telling the public to be prepared for war.
And if North Korea does not choose the pathway of engagement, discussion, negotiation, then they themselves will trigger an option.
Tonight, a dire warning from Defense Secretary James Mattis that North Korea should cease any consideration of actions that would lead to the end of its regime and the destruction of its people.
What's different about this approach is that we're out of time, right? As Ambassador Haley said before, we've been kicking the can down the road and we're out of road. There is a military option.
While the Trump regime wants to turn up the heat, the threats have actually triggered highly unusual peace talks between North and South, behind the back of the U.S. empire. But could such talks prevent a determined U.S. war machine, especially with new conditions being set by Washington?
Is there any way in which the U.S. can coexist with a nuclear North Korea?
Anthony, I don't think we can tolerate that risk. The world can't tolerate that risk.
The civilized world must remain united and vigilant against the rogue state's development of a nuclear arsenal. We will never accept a nuclear North Korea.
The rest of the world is quite resolute in this stand we're taking that we will never accept them as a nuclear power.
The DPRK already has nuclear weapons. It's clearly unrealistic they would ever give them up. But that's what the U.S. is now saying justifies an attack. To further explore the context of this war danger, we continue our discussion with expert on the region, Tim Sharrock. U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley recently said that North Korea was begging for war. And certainly there has been agreements in the past between even the U.S. and North Korea that has stalled or completely halted for a period of time their nuclear program. And so let's go back. I mean, the Trump administration is so belligerent, but let's go back to the Clinton administration. There was an agreement that ended up freezing its nuclear program for 12 years.
Right.
So what was that agreement, and then how did Bush muck it up?
Well, so in the late 1980s, North Korea under Kim Il-sung started looking at, having nuclear weapons. And part of the reason was because until 1991, the U.S. had nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons in South Korea, hundreds of them. These kind of handheld weapons that U.S. soldiers would carry. Their nuclear weapons had hundreds of them in South Korea. And of course, the U.S. 7th Fleet is in Yokosuka, Japan, and very close to Korea. And there's ships there that have nuclear arms, planes. And Okinawa, the U.S. bases are there. And so they saw, building a nuclear capability was a way of defending themselves. They had signed the NPT, the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. And when they decided to proceed in a nuclear program, they pulled out of the NPT. And to that pulling out of the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty was like a red line for the U.S. And actually, the Clinton administration seriously considered a nuclear strike on the Yongbyon facilities at the time. They came very close to it. And there was a lot of talk of war. It was just like there is, just like today. People might remember, Jimmy Carter went to North Korea, flew to North Korea, met with Kim Il-sung, and they hammered out what became this agreed framework under which North Korea agreed to end its nuclear program, stop its production of plutonium at this plant, and in return, the U.S., because they had to shut down this reactor, the U.S. agreed to supply them with 500,000 tons of fuel oil a year. They had actually shut down their plutonium production in 1991. And so until 12 years later, they didn't produce any. And so when Bush took over in 2001, with all these neocons in his government, like John Bolton and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, were against this agreement, any agreement with North Korea. In his State of the Union address, Bush labeled North Korea as part of the axis of evil with Iran and Iraq. So this was like the last straw for the North Koreans. They said, okay, we now see that you believe we're back in enemy status. And so they pulled out of the agreement themselves and started proceeding on their plutonium program. And by 2006, they had built their first atomic weapon and tested their first weapon in 2006.
Negotiations, didn't they start later on during the Bush administration, and then it was Obama that actually completely, again, destroyed them?
2005, there was a declaration by South and North Korea, U.S., Japan, China, and Russia that Korea itself would not be nuclear, would not allow nuclear weapons, North or South. All the countries agreed to that. That agreement with the 5 countries had been violated by the U.S. because at the time the U.S. was still imposing, sanctions kept being imposed, one after the other. And so they felt like this hostile policy had never ended. They exploded their bomb in 2006, partly in response to the strict sanctions that were being imposed unilaterally by the U.S. And when Obama came in 2009, he and his people sort of had this idea that somehow the problem of North Korea would go away because it was going to collapse, that it was bound to collapse. Internally, there had been starvation in the past, and the North Korean leadership just didn't have the wherewithal to maintain control and power, and they just figured it was going to go away. And they did not want to negotiate directly with North Korea. So even, Bush was willing to have direct talks with them. Obama was not. Gaddafi was overthrown in Libya, and he had, of course, given up his nuclear weapons. And so, to Kim Jong-il and his son, who's now the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, they saw this happening, and so the country give up its nuclear weapons, and then get invaded and overthrown by a U.S. NATO coalition, and they figured, well, our nuclear weapons and a powerful military is our only protection against this happening to us. And so, from then on, they continued to build and to improve on their missiles, and they exploded. I think under Obama, they tested three nuclear bombs, and of course they just exploded one a few weeks ago.
But representatives have said that they would never strike first, right? And also that this whole history proves that they're willing to negotiate away their nuclear program under certain conditions. So it just seems to contradict the claim that we hear continuously from the U.S., which is this is all about stopping North Korea from having nukes.
Right. It may be too late to stop them from having nukes. I mean, they have nukes. I mean, they're nuclear power. Right. They have them, and they have obviously really, well-developed missile program. Look, they see themselves surrounded. And of course, the U.S. has a very powerful military in the South. But I mean, U.S. military is in alliance with the South Korean military, which is a very, very powerful military in itself, and Japan's. And they have bases all over, and they have U.S. ships. And of course, there's all the U.S. bases around the Pacific region, particularly in Guam, where these B-1B bombers are based that would fly in any kind of attack on North Korea, which just flew. They flew a bunch of them over Korean skies just the last 48 hours.
Constant war games and threats.
Constant war games, constant ratcheting up the tensions. North Korea, and what's kind of interesting when you look at the so-called threats from each side, like you hear Trump say, fire and fury like the world has never seen before, like bringing up images of, that's what Truman said before he dropped the bomb on Nagasaki, the second bomb, right? Similar kinds of words, but it's basically, we're going to inflict a Holocaust on you. And you hear words like Mattis saying, basically we have the capability to completely destroy your country. Annihilate. They keep using this word annihilate. We're going to annihilate your country if you don't, denuclearize. If a non-military solution doesn't work out, we're ready to annihilate you. And then you look at their threats. America was all shocked when they said they might test some missiles by firing them towards Guam. Why Guam? Well, that's where these B-1 bombers are based, where these B-1 bombers fly regular missions from there over Korean skies. They have massive amounts of firepower on those planes. I mean, they're bunker buster bombs, all kinds of munitions that could blow half the cities of North Korea sky high. So they fly in F-35s from Japan, also the most advanced fighter jets the U.S. has, stealth fighters that can't be seen by radar. So, the U.S. keeps saying, we're ready to annihilate you, and they say, well, we might fire a missile towards Guam, where so their threats tend to be more particularized, towards a U.S. base. They fired a missile across, Japan island of Hokkaido about a week ago. Again, they said this puts us in the Pacific theater of war, because they correctly see, the U.S. is a Pacific power, and this is where the war would be.
And it's all you see all day over the news. What are we going to do? This missile was launched. It's just nuts.
The U.S. media never looks at it from their point of view. What is it like to hear your country may be annihilated? Annihilation means everybody's dead. There's 25 million people in North Korea. So what? We're going to kill 25 million people to prevent them from having one nuclear weapon without even talking to them?
And it's extremely genocidal rhetoric. The fire and fury, reckoning the past of the Korean War. We've seen the fire and fury before. They've lived through it. They've survived it. Mattis, Haley, John McCain threatening essentially genocide.
Exactly.
How does this type of rhetoric resonate with South Koreans and the administration?
Well, it scares the hell out of people in South Korea, because people are there. Actually, when I was there in April and May, people there are far more worried about what Trump might do than what Kim Jong-un would do. They're used to these kinds of, tensions with North Korea, but they see it primarily as between North Korea and the United States. And one of the interesting things about the period, the Sunshine Period, those years from about 1999 to 2008, when you had progressive governments in the South and you had this exchange between North and South, is that lots of people from South Korea went north, and lots of people from North Korea came south. Academic visits, exchanges, sports, cultural, economic. The investment that happened with South Korean companies in North Korea, and that period of time with all that exchange and engagement, a lot of South Koreans stopped thinking about North Korea in terms of enemy so much. So the whole idea of us versus them broke down, and people began talking about, how can we take this kind of engagement and slowly move toward reunifying our country at some time, and that's really important for us to understand, because South Koreans, when they hear Trump talking about fire and fury, I guess Trump doesn't realize that thousands and thousands of South Koreans have relatives in North Korea. Their families are. He's talking about their families, maybe their grandfather, their great-grandfather, their brother. So when he's talking about destroying the entire North Korean people, he's talking about destroying their own relative, and they see it as one country, and they don't see it in this divisive way that so many of our leaders do here. And I might add, in both parties, Democrat, Republican, they're the same. You hear the same hawkish stuff from both sides.
And a complete dehumanization of North Koreans as if they're all just robots who hypnotically following and worshiping their dear leader. They're human beings.
They're human
They're
beings.
human beings.
Because instead of seeing them as just these demonic, crazy people, we should see them as human beings with hopes and dreams for their country like anybody else, and try to reach some common ground with them. Like, if they want us to drop our hostile policy, we should think, what is in our policy that's hostile can we change? Do we have to have, hundreds of nukes pointed at them all the time, from all over the Pacific theater? Do we always have to constantly, have this trade embargo? The embargo has lasted, from the end of the Korean War.
Many in the U.S. establishment are arguing for a major war, as we're talking about, which would no doubt trigger just death and destruction, on a horrific scale. What would that look like for Korea, U.S. soldiers, and if regime change was successfully led by the U.S., what do you think would replace the regime?
So the U.S., you read like this CNN story the other day from Barbara Starr. It was just a shill for the Pentagon. She talks about a 1-month war. They go in there and somehow take out their missile sites and take out nuclear sites. Obviously that in itself would kill tens of thousands of people. But, North Korea, if they're attacked, they're going to fire back. They're not going to take this lying down. So there are, tens of thousands of artillery pieces all along the border. North Korea has hundreds of thousands of artillery all along the border, and Seoul is only 30 miles away. So any kind of U.S. attack would generate a counter response. I mean, the U.S. bases are in the headquarters. U.S. military headquarters is in Seoul. There's a base nearby, and the huge base that's just being completed, the U.S. military base, largest U.S. military base in the world, right near Seoul. Those are all targets. Guam's a target. That's why they have these missiles. Because they see, that's where the U.S. forces are. So if they want to defend themselves, they have to, fire, hit U.S. planes in Guam, and they fire missiles over Japan because U.S. has massive military force in Japan. So, an attack on Korea could generate not only counterattack on South Korea, but a counterattack on Japan. I mean, it would be a regional war. And I think that's why a lot of people in the U.S. military and the Pentagon don't want a war, because, a war would be just, they know that it would just suck up huge amounts of resources. And sometimes I look at these plans that they feed to Barbara Starr and reporters like that, and I wonder, they're also talking about, we have all this. The other day, there's a story in the paper about how the U.S. presence in Afghanistan is going to probably last until the end of the century, and so we're going to have this massive military might in the Middle East forever, and then we're going to have a war in Korea. It's just it just starts sounding insane, and you start wondering, you start wondering about the sanity of our military planners here. But there's a lot of people in the U.S. military that know how destructive a war would be in Korea. Anyone who's served there, mountainous country, and the people, they know the North Korean army, would put up a hell of a fight, and they know that the cost would be millions of lives, and I think that's the one factor that's maybe holding back U.S. Trump and his people. But now they're talking, they keep talking about the military option. I mean, Steve Bannon, when he was fired from the White House, apparently, the thing that got him raked over the coals the next day by Secretary of State Tillerson and Secretary of Defense Mattis was a statement that the war is not an option. They could not let that stand. Yes, war is an option. They came back very quickly with that. War is, to me, it's just obscene to be talking about war as an option when it could kill, millions of people. I guess, Senator Lindsey Graham just says that's people over there. It's not going to bother, It's only those Asian people are going to get killed. Even Japan, But so what? We're not there. But I mean, tens of thousands of Americans could get killed too, and clearly that's why they're building a nuclear capability to be able to even shoot a nuclear weapon at the United States. They want to deter the United States from attacking them. So I think a war is unthinkable, but apparently not so unthinkable that they're still talking about it and still see it as an option. I think that's very scary that they keep insisting, and that the UN ambassador Nikki Haley keeps talking about this and says, well, if we don't work in diplomacy, what diplomacy? They haven't even tried it yet. Then she's going to hand it over to Secretary of Defense Mattis. I think that kind of language is really scary. And as far as your second question, I mean, what I know from when I've been following these sort of regime changes here, these people at the RAND Corporation, for example. Bruce Bennett, who's a specialist at the RAND Corporation, who thinks that, the target should be Kim Jong-un.
Worked closely on the interview with Seth Rogen.
Exactly, and helped that movie, helped with the end of the movie where they blew his head apart. And said that was a good idea to keep that in. Well, their model is to have the sort of U.S.-induced regime change from within, like they're going to somehow win over all these North Korean elites, to somehow go along with some kind of U.S. plan to have a U.S.-backed government in North Korea, overthrow their government. And when you read carefully what they have to say and hear what they have to say, it's like South Korea isn't even part of their discussion. And there was a sort of rumor that got into a story. Some reporter picked up some intelligence from some counterinsurgency people in Washington who are, consultants and contractors, and they were saying, oh, well, we're talking to the Trump administration about, doing a counterinsurgency in North Korea. I mean, these people are nuts. They don't know anything about Korea. I mean, North Korea has its own, special forces, and of course, South Korea also does. I mean, the idea that somehow the U.S. is going to go in there and direct this regime change in North Korea, and everything's going to be, we're going to have a pro-U.S. government there, and everything's going to be fine, is the same kind of mentality as the United States had. It's in 1940, same mentality. And somehow, we in America have to learn the real history. We certainly need a guy. Oh yeah, my brother was was one of the partisans, and you hear that kind of talk. I mean, there's this whole in history that's hidden from America.
Bueno, mi nombre es Diego Perrota, soy artista visual argentino. Uno en el tiempo va entendiendo ciertos anclajes en lo que es un poco la revisión de nuestras culturas latinoamericanas, de ciertas relaciones de imágenes de los pueblos originarios. Con respecto a la Unión Latinoamericana, yo creo que se da por diferentes aspectos, con cierto desorden tan característico nuestro. Y no sé si es desorden, es como una organización del caos distinto que nosotros tenemos. Y después, bueno, esta particularidad de las crisis latinoamericanas, sociales, económicas, políticas, que creo que nos hermanan.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on innovation, conservation, human well-being, and human rights. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with At the Moon. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. We defend the struggles of peoples in resistance fighting for their rights. Between Borders. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identity on By Gender. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on teleSUR, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean. Different causes motivate people to look for new horizons. We'll have the right to move freely beyond the imposed walls. Imaginary lines are shown between the hostility towards some
y la oportunidad de otros para forjar nuevos caminos.
Buscamos la respuesta a las inquietudes del siglo XXI.
Between Borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR.
From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Suini Gray. The U.S. State Department has criticized Venezuela's decision to call a presidential election on April 22nd and said the U.S. would have to support the opposition parties. The spokesperson, Heather Nauert, tweeted the communique saying the United States denounces the decision by Venezuela's National Constituent Electoral Council to unilaterally advance presidential elections. We support the decision of the opposition parties to reject the regime's terms for elections that would not be free and fair. The National Electoral Council announced the election date just hours after talks with the Venezuelan opposition in the Dominican Republic collapsed. One of the main points of disagreement in Santo Domingo was the date of the election, with the opposition asking for the vote to be held in June.
We commit, as always, to guarantee all democratic conditions so that any difference during this coming electoral process can be solved through the people's vote, so that their voice, sacred and absolute, can be heard and that the people of Venezuela can decide our fate. We commit to the people of Venezuela and with everyone that has contributed to this collective effort. The National Electoral Council has been in permanent session since Monday and has analyzed a possible election date. Today, we have decided and we call for the presidential election to be held on April 22nd.
Our correspondent Laura Prada has the latest from Caracas.
It's nice to greet you from Caracas. Indeed, as you all know, last night was announced the official date for the presidential elections here in Venezuela for the 22nd of April. But today the news are that the European Union announced that they will apply sanctions to President Maduro and to the oil Venezuela produces. Also that Julio Borges, leader of the opposition who is representing them at the dialogues in Dominican Republic, said that they were going to meet to see if they were going to present a candidate for the presidential elections. The campaign will start next month, the 2nd till the 19th of April. This is all we have now from Caracas. We'll be getting back together.
We thank Laura Prada for that report. The former Prime Minister of Spain, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, is one of the lead mediators in the negotiations, and he has sent a letter to each of the heads of the Venezuelan opposition parties. The letter confirms that the parties had reached a basic level of consensus for an agreement during the talks in the Dominican Republic, which included cooperation to face economic challenges and agreements regarding the election process and more. Zapatero said that it was unexpected to see that the document was not ultimately signed by the opposition, and the letter ends with a plea to the opposition to formally endorse the agreement in order to achieve peace and democracy. And the Venezuelan government has published in full the agreement it signed in the Dominican Republic, but which the opposition refused to sign. President Nicolas Maduro said he would be prepared to implement it even without the opposition. So let's have a closer look at what was in the Santo Domingo agreement. Both sides had agreed on working together to review and to rid of the sanctions against the country imposed by other nations. A second point included a series of guarantees for the presidential elections, which the opposition had pushed for, including an international observer mission, and another key issue that was also a demand by the opposition to reach a peaceful coexistence between the opposition-controlled National Assembly and the National Constituent Assembly. Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno says he has been vindicated by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights after it said it did not have the jurisdiction to rule on a request to protect the members of Ecuador's Council for Citizen Participation. Last Sunday's referendum in Ecuador voted to replace the council with a new body. The government had asked the court to reject the request from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, a separate body which argued that question 3 in the referendum had not been approved by Ecuador's constitutional courts.
The arguments presented by Ecuador to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights have been positively received, and the IACHR has decided to ignore the requests made by the Commission to implement measures for Ecuador. It's excellent news, and I thank them.
Bermuda's Senate and House of Assembly has passed legislation abolishing same-sex marriage 1 year after introducing it. A Supreme Court ruling last May legalized same-sex marriage, but in a non-binding referendum, Bermudans voted against it. Bermudan government officials said the act reinstates that marriage must be between a man and a woman, while at the same time recognizing and protecting the rights of same-sex couples. LGBTI groups have called the move a backward step. So I'm being joined now from Hamilton, Bermuda by Hywell Davis, who's a reporter at Bermuda Broadcasting. Hi, Hywell. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
So, very briefly, why is Bermuda repealing same-sex marriage?
It's not so much repealing it. There was a judgment last year by a court, Supreme Court here, saying that they had to allow it, basically. And what the government has done is put in legislation to ban same-sex marriage, because there's a lot of pressure. You have to remember is that Bermuda is quite a conservative place, very Christian, lot of Christian population here, and they're very opposed to gay equality in marriage, seeing it as between a man and a woman, introduction. There's a lot of pressure on the government not let same-sex marriage happen. What they've done instead is that you have civil marriages, which are almost the same, you've got the same legal rights, but not quite the same thing. That's made a lot of the gays very angry, is that not full equality, like a step back from that. So that's the situation.
And the referendum that forced this new change apparently had a very low turnout. Is there any reasons for this?
Well, the referendum didn't come into force because it had to reach 50% of the population voting, and not enough people voted. It did vote; those that did vote, a majority of 2-1 was against same-sex marriage. But that's not what it was really. It was the judgment in May 2017 by a judge saying you have to allow same-sex marriage. Cause controversy at the moment. That's now been overturned by the government. The referendum, in a way, irrelevant, but it was how much opposition to marriage here in Bermuda.
Thank you so much for that. We've been talking to Hywell Davis. He is a reporter at Bermuda Broadcasting. And we're going to take a short break now, so join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting on. Welcome back. Social leaders will travel to Quito, Ecuador on Friday to meet with the National Liberation Army, or ELN, to talk about resuming the peace dialogue with the Colombian government. The group says Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos authorized the trip. The delegates traveling to Quito are proposing both sides take measures to decrease the verbal and military confrontation. And they're also asking for a new ceasefire agreement. The negative impact of Chile's pension funds after the U.S. stock market collapse has created anger, and social organizations are fighting to end the privatization of the country's pension system. More details in the next report.
With more than $20 billion, the United States is the biggest market for Chilean investment companies after the so-called Wall Street Black Monday. Chile's pension fund administrators, AFP, announced negative effects on the population, generating big concerns.
While we try to achieve our final goal, which is to reform our pension system in order to have better pensions for everyone, we want to protect low-risk capital funds, to give us more stability in the face of worldwide stock market difficulties.
The No More AFP organization said that pensioners are the ones who suffer the negative consequences of a speculative financial system, not the companies who control the funds.
In the long term, there will be no money for pensioners. We need to speak up about the need to change the system. We must end the capitalization of our pension system.
The system has been established in many countries around the world. The main objective is to force pensioners to depend on private investors, and it has been managed by 6 international companies.
The Chilean pension system invests more than $200 billion, which is equivalent to 75% of the gross domestic product. It produces great wealth, and at the same time it coexists with a lot of poverty. Pensions today are below the minimum wage, and they will continue to go down in the next couple of years, which is extremely bad for our people.
The privatization of pension funds is likely to increase social inequality and could damage the entire financial system. Political decisions are needed to change the pension system and guarantee Chilean people an honorable retirement.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is in Trinidad and Tobago as part of an international diplomacy tour promoting peace and dialogue. He has met his counterpart, Trinidadian Foreign Minister Dennis Moses, who expressed his preference for a region of peace. Arreaza's tour follows a week-long tour by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, which largely focused on gaining support from allies in the region to take action against the Venezuelan government. And earlier, Jorge Arreaza visited Suriname as part of a tour to strengthen dialogue between Latin American and Caribbean countries. Rolando Seguro tells us more.
Venezuelan diplomacy continues with the so-called Dignity Tour. Arreaza was welcomed by Desiree Bouterse, the president of Suriname, South American country which is a strong ally of Venezuela.
We and all countries, we try to live at peace, keep this kind of region as a peace zone. At the same time, we do believe in solidarity with each other, and in this moment of time when things are, let's say, very difficult.
The visit to Suriname's parliament marked another point in the search for joint working against adversity. Nicolás Maduro warned against threats aimed not just towards his nation, but also against the whole region. This after the US suggested it might sanction and arrogate natural resources from other countries. Venezuela and Suriname are becoming very close in the current situation.
Brother, we can call that. The relationship is standing, and we are very delighted to receive the Minister of Foreign Affairs today, to have a good discussion with him about not only the relationship, the situation over there, and how we can move from here to the future.
The Institute for Venezuela-Suriname Cooperation was the stage for a meeting between both countries. Representatives from social movements and residents from both nations were able to hear about the situation in Venezuela.
Talk and think about the situation now in Venezuela. It's a very difficult situation, and we think we're going to study that, educate it, and when we have an input as the government, the Youth Parliament of Suriname, we can do advice to help, and we are ready to help.
If they are black,
Similar events have taken place during the last few days in Cuba, Belize, and Nicaragua, the previous destinations of Venezuela's diplomacy tour.
Evo Morales' wide social base is preparing for a day of countrywide mobilizations in support of his run for a third term as president. For more on this, we have a report from Freddy Morales in Bolivia.
Social organizations, which constitute the social base of the government of Evo Morales, announced simultaneous mobilizations in the country's largest cities on the 21st of this month. The mobilizations will express their support for the possibility that Evo Morales may run as candidate for re-election in 2019. On the same day, the 21st of February, the political opposition is organizing mobilizations against the postulation of Evo Morales for re-election. This is an issue already decided on by the Constitutional Court, which at the end of last year, by way of resolution, declared his candidacy for a third term legal. The opposition has included the OAS in a campaign to nullify the Constitutional Court's decision. According to the government, there is a campaign of lies on social media, which resulted in a negative outcome for the opposition. For these reasons and more, the 21st of February has become notorious in this country.
Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales is in Washington, D.C. Morales posed for a brief photo op with the U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. He also met with President Trump away from reporters before attending the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington. According to a statement by the White House, the two leaders discussed the situation in Venezuela and agreed to work together to restore democracy to the country. Trump also thanked President Morales for supporting the United States and Israel and for agreeing to move the Guatemalan embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Good afternoon, all. I want to welcome President Morales.
Grenada has celebrated its 44th independence anniversary. Meanwhile, CARICOM Secretary General Erwin LaRocque praised its commitment to the 15-member organization. The Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell, was congratulated by LaRocque, applauding his work during the hurricane season. LaRocque also emphasized that there is much for Grenada to be proud of.
And the Secretary General for General Assembly and Conference.
Carnival in Brazil started with the joy and music that it always brings, but this year there's a twist in the shape of a mass rally in defense of former President Lula da Silva. Our correspondent, Andre Vieira, tells us more in this next report.
Rio de Janeiro already started, actually since December. But this year it will have a special surprise with sectors who will defend Lula da Silva's right to be a presidential candidate. Let's remember that Lula was condemned in January, which would keep him out of the presidential elections in Brazil. Lula's lawyers denounced this as a judicial persecution because there is not enough proof to hand out that sentence. They will look for help in other courts. After last Monday's announcement of Lula's sentence, his lawyers have 10 days to receive the notification, and then 2 more days to present their proposal. This is what happens with the defense. But there is also a defense movement on the streets. Today we will accompany these blogs of the carnival that brings so much joy and happiness as a way of dialogue with people who come out to enjoy this event. This carnival, apart from the joy and amusement, is also a way to protest. And today we will witness the defense of democracy, Lula's right to be a candidate, and to denounce that clear fact that Silva's situation is the continuation of the coup d'etat started with the arrival of de facto president Michel Temer.
We take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting on.
You! Trump, God bless Trump, we're gonna nuke you guys. F you, F you, F you. You're ugly and you have a flat face and an ugly nose.
Put your hands on me one more time.
Run your mouth. Go back to
Listen,
Mexico.
I said, excuse me.
Go back. Wherever you're from.
We're gonna kill all of you. We're gonna kill every one of you fucking Muslims.
You're fat. You can't do anything.
It has nothing
You
to
can't
do
do
with
Your country.
Okay.
Because when I see you, I see that you are black and I see that you are not white.
Really?
So you are not like the rest of us.
Oh.
God help us.
Welcome back. In Spain, the Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy is insisting that Catalonia should choose a new president and not Puigdemont or Junqueras. More details in the next report.
Saludos a toda nuestra audiencia.
In Madrid's ABC forum, the Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy has asked the Catalan Parliament once again to elect a, quote, normal president, a president that is not involved in court proceedings, because Carles Puigdemont, exiled in Brussels, as well as Oriol Junqueras, who is now under arrest, could run once again for president of the Generalitat. The swearing-in of the new president must happen before April 6th. If a new president is not elected, then there would be fresh elections in May. Catalan Radio, RAC1, has suggested Elsa Attardi, Puigdemont's deputy, as a possible candidate for the Generalitat presidency, while Carles Puigdemont would run from Brussels. When asked about this, Attardi defended Puigdemont's candidacy. That's all we have for now.
We thank Romina for that report. The biggest workers' union in Germany has won the right to work 28 hours a week, along with a pay hike of 4%. Europe's largest industrial union, IG Metall, and the Employers Federation have agreed to reduce working hours from 36 hours to 28 hours a week for 2 years. For now, the deal covers some 900,000 workers. The union has been demanding an improved work-life balance to take care of their families better. In India, at least 33 people have tested positive for HIV after they were infected by a syringe with a syringe by a doctor. The file was opened after the suspect, Rahindra Kumar, who has gone into hiding, and police are still looking for him. Authorities say he's not registered as a medical practitioner, and the patients are now being treated in a government facility. Thousands of Palestinians have gathered at Gaza's border crossing with Egypt, hoping for a chance to leave after Cairo temporarily opened a frontier that's usually closed. Israel also maintains restrictions on its border with the Gaza Strip, maintaining the 2 million Palestinians who live there are rarely able to leave the densely populated enclave. Wall Street tumbled again for the second time this week. The major indexes dropped close to 4%. Investors dumped bonds and equities after failing to see a bottom in the market. The Dow recorded its biggest one-day drop ever on Monday, on fears that the Fed will be raising interest rates. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his country won't be pushed to renegotiation with the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, especially after U.S. President Trump's demands.
What I've said is, and I think the language of walking away has been taken as mirroring some of the things that the President has said. We have a different approach on that. It is that we will continue to engage thoughtfully, constructively at the negotiating table, because we know there is a good deal to be had.
And Canadian members of Parliament sang the new gender-neutral lyrics to their national anthem. The second line of O Canada's English version was changed to "In all of us command" from "In all thy sons command." Conservative senators opposed the change, arguing that it should have been decided in a referendum. The 2018 Winter Olympics flame has reached the South Korean city a day before the opening ceremony at the Pyeongchang Games. The flame has traveled 1,000 kilometers through 9 provinces and 8 major cities across South Korea. The torch will reach its final destination Friday, when it will light the cauldron at the opening ceremony for the 2018 Winter Games. And now for more world news.
The UN has announced that more than $1 billion in funding is needed this year to help millions of people affected by Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria. Almost $200 million will go towards programs providing food, shelter, clean water, education, and medical care.
As of 3 years ago, access to Maiduguri alone was a major challenge. But today, there are thousands of nationals and international staff that, owing to the significant security improvements, now reside in Maiduguri and are able to work within a zone that is still referred to as a conflict zone.
A court in Bangladesh has convicted opposition leader Khalida Zia of corruption and sentenced her to 5 years in jail. Police clashed with thousands of supporters outside the court. At least 4 people have been injured and 7 government officials have been arrested. Tensions continue to rise in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon as separatist groups demand the release of their leader and 46 other prisoners. At least 4 schools have been burnt down and 22 soldiers and policemen have been killed.
They are fighting against us because they don't want us to separate from them. But we have already made up our minds. We want autonomy from them. Yes, we don't want to live with them anymore. They have mistreated us for many years.
Israel and Lebanon have exchanged threats over a border wall being built by Israel. Lebanon has described Israel's border wall as an aggression, saying it intrudes into Lebanese territory. The Israeli government says the wall will be entirely on its side of the UN-recognized border.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Sony Gray. Thank you so much for watching.
Bueno, mi nombre es Diego Perrota, soy artista visual argentino. Uno en el tiempo va entendiendo ciertos anclajes en lo que es un poco la revisión de nuestras culturas latinoamericanas, de ciertas relaciones de imágenes de los pueblos originarios. Con respecto a la Unión Latinoamericana, yo creo que se da por diferentes aspectos, con cierto desorden tan característico nuestro. Y no sé si es desorden, es como una organización del caos distinto que nosotros tenemos. Y después, bueno, esta particularidad de las crisis latinoamericanas, sociales, económicas, políticas, que creo que nos hermanan.
Different causes motivate people to look for new horizons. We'll have the right to move freely beyond the imposed walls. Imaginary lines are shown between the hostility towards some.
Y la oportunidad de otros para forjar nuevos caminos.
Buscamos la respuesta a las inquietudes del siglo XXI.
Between borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR. During all this time they have been with us to report the realities shivering the world, supporting and sharing our victories. Due to their work, we are currently in more places and will still be in the voice of the people. The news source from Latin America and the Caribbean. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on teleSUR.
Kata kulia kitana kata kehakenaka istapham hicap sarta sinyani walich amampi konti suyumpi anti suyumpi cinca suyumpi kolya suyumpi tawantin suyu hacharap tanya taki nairaru saram tap kanani hangke paru intasisa.
Cuando no podían dominar a mis abuelos con la cruz, intentaron dominar con las normas. Cuando no podían dominar con las normas, con la espada. Se prepararon para dominar,
Sí que tenemos el dolor, por eso ya no queremos acordarnos sobre eso.
En la educación nos enseñan bajo estereotipos racistas, ¿no? Nos enseñan bajo estereotipos europeos.
Aquí en esta ciudad había una discriminación terrible. Los indígenas no podían entrar con su traje ni al centro de la ciudad.
Somos un pueblo con una identidad diferente al otro y que además tenemos identidad propia, cultura propia.
Que las fuerzas sociales decidan y como presidente solo mandar obedeciendo al pueblo y así podemos ir resolviendo los problemas que tenemos.
Vamos a hacer una minga. Soy Piedad Córdoba, activista de derechos humanos, y a donde quiera que vaya voy siempre en busca de una causa justa. ¡Tus luchas son nuestras luchas! A Sucre le dicen la ciudad blanca. Es una ciudad hermosísima. Aquí se dio el primer grito de independencia en América. Pero a la par, Sucre significa la cuna de la independencia, de la libertad, de la emancipación. También han ocurrido hechos absolutamente estremecedores. Pareciera que quienes han pintado las paredes, quienes han convertido en esta ciudad blanca, quisieran que esa blancura también se reflejara en el rostro de sus gentes, de sus campesinos, de sus campesinas, de sus indígenas. En el 2010 nace la ley contra todas las formas de discriminación racial, es decir, la ley contra el racismo. Por eso estamos aquí, para buscar estas causas, pero también para que se haga justicia.
¡De rodillas, carajo! ¡Van a morir!
¿Qué te recuerda hoy estar aquí en este estadio?
Yo me acuerdo, ¿no?, del aquel 24 de mayo. Aquí tenía que entregarse a las alcaldías, a los municipios, a las organizaciones sociales, las ambulancias. Llegamos con Sucre, a lo que podamos llegamos, pero el estadio está bien, con grupos de choque seguramente llenito, estaba humeando las gomas aquí toda la ciudad.
¿Grupos de choque?
Sí.
O sea, de la policía.
No, esas siempre eran del Comité Internacional, pues, los universitarios de la Universidad San Francisco Javier.
Ah, de la Universidad San Francisco Javier. Buenas, ¿cómo están?
Bien.
Buenas. ¿Y ustedes qué piensan de lo que pasó el 24 de mayo del 2008? Dicen que fueron estudiantes los que los golpearon, los que los arrastraron.
Más que todo fue, digamos, gente que no era mucho de la universidad, sino que estaban metidos de otros lugares. Entonces siguieron a la mayoría, a la multitud, y tenían malos pensamientos, tal vez un poco, sí, racistas o discriminadores.
Eran dirigentes y ellos estaban viniendo con una actitud prepotente hacia Sucre. Y el pueblo un tanto se molestó.
Ellos estaban opuestos a la entrega.
Ellos estaban opuestos contra el gobierno, contra nosotros. Ellos y el Comité Nacional de la Ciudad, pues, ahí estaba la alcaldesa ese tiempo, Aide Nava, Jaime Barrón era rector de la universidad.
Yo les decía a los hermanos, nos retiraremos, nos van a pegar, vámonos. Entonces ya no nos ha dado tiempo para escaparnos, entonces nos han rodeado y nosotros en el medio hemos aparecido y ya hayan aprovechado para tirarnos con piedra, con palos y todo eso.
Bien estaba yendo mi hija por delante. Yo sabe por qué no me hubiesen pegado, porque llevo el sombrero. Porque el que tenía sombrero, chancletas, a huasquear. a pegar. Y todos nos decían, ay, estos indios campesinos.
Pero ellos también no son hijos de indios, de indígenas, los estudiantes.
Son pues,
¿Y
somos
por qué?
raíces de
Claro.
eso, pero...
¿Y quién entiende eso?
No entiende.
¡Yo, la puta!
¡Ustedes se han mandado! ¡Carajo, sáquenlo los rapa, mierda! ¡Sáquenlo los rapa, carajo! ¡Puta!
Pero usted sabe qué niña, usted está besando. Esta es la casa de Aide Navas, la que fuera alcaldesa de acá de Sucre, en el momento en que ocurrieran los hechos dolosos y lamentables del 24 de mayo de 2008, que dio cuenta a una cantidad de indígenas humillados, aporreados, maltratados, por el solo hecho de venir como campesinos a recibir unas ambulancias de distintas regiones del departamento de Chuquisaca. Uno siente que hay un profundo racismo en las expresiones y en lo que desató también la ira del 24 de mayo.
Hubo una provocación de parte de... Hay videos donde muestran que los originarios, los campesinos estaban con piedras, con palos, y alguna gente se prestó, lamentablemente, entró a eso.
Los estudiantes.
Algunos estudiantes y alguna gente que también trajeron de otros lugares. Fue algo armado.
¡Te quiero! ¡Fuerte! ¡Sucre, te quiero!
¡Sucre, capital constitucional de Bolivia!
¡Sucre, constitucional, capital de Bolivia!
¡Nunca voy a ser del MAS!
Yo estoy contigo, Sucre.
Pero podría pensarse que como autoridades no hicieron nada y permitieron todos los hechos.
Yo defendí, señora senadora. Yo defendí. Yo le voy a mandar absolutamente todos los videos para que usted conozca la verdad y la realidad de lo que sucedió el 24 de mayo. Yo lo que le pido, señora senadora, que lo que yo estoy hablando, y esa fue la condición para que yo pueda hablar con ella, se presente tal como así. Sí. O sea, que no se muestre solamente como que uno reconoce que es racista. Yo no soy racista. Yo estoy convencidísima de que Sucre no es una ciudad racista.
Bueno, yo le agradezco mucho y espero que nos haga llegar los videos.
Yo le voy a hacer llegar.
Sí, bueno, entonces...
Yo los voy a editar y le voy a hacer llegar. Yo los voy a editar y le voy a hacer llegar.
¿Dónde estamos exactamente?
Ahorita estamos ubicándonos en la comunidad La Poza, en la provincia Sodancha, el departamento de Chuquisaca.
Chuquisaca. Les toca duro, es dura trabajar la tierra, ¿sí o no?
A lo menos un campesino trabaja desde las 4 de la mañana hasta que anochezca. No hay horario fijado para trabajar, ¿no? Uno que vea en Sucre así con sombrerito ya te discriminaba.
¿Sí?
Ya te discriminaba. Te veían como esta mochilita, ya te discriminaba. ¿Cuántas veces yo me he hecho agarrar en Sucre?
Sí, ¿por qué?
Porque te llevaba como esta mochila, porque estoy dirigente, porque tengo que... Archivos tienen que ser adentro, los documentos.
Sí.
Pero creen que ellos no más saben, como los campesinos acá no sabemos, también sabemos.
Bueno, Martín, lo grave de todo esto de la discriminación es que la sociedad tiende a negarlo, tiende a decir que no existe.
Yo creo que ese ha sido uno de los temas más álgidos con el cual nos hemos tenido que chocar, porque justamente en el año 2007 en Bolivia todos pensaban que el tema del racismo, el tema de la discriminación era algo superado, era algo que se daba en círculos muy privados y en realidad no era algo que afectaba a nuestro país de manera estructural.
Hasta que aparece la figura del indio de presidente.
Hasta que aparece la figura del indio de presidente, pero en la Asamblea Constituyente nos encontramos. Como Bolivia nos encontramos obreros, nos encontramos maestros, nos encontramos indios, indias, nos encontramos intelectuales de clase media, nos encontramos profesionales de todo tipo.
¿El país?
El país se encuentra en la Asamblea Constituyente y ahí es donde afloran y brotan estas expresiones de racismo.
De racismo, sí.
Ya son últimas las cosas, pero ya estoy acabando,
Policarpio, ¿sabes yo qué estaba pensando? Todo el esfuerzo que hicieron ustedes para llegar a Sucre el 24 de mayo de 2008.
El 24 de mayo de 2008 yo estuve de dirigente, ¿no? Porque la idea era recoger las ambulancias. Y de ahí nomás nos ha atropellado los estudiantes con dinamitas, ¿no? Desde esas veces, algunos de mis compañeros no tienen pisada Sucre, al departamento Sucre. Tienen miedo. Tienen miedo. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué se pasó eso? Por eso yo diría que no pase esas clases de actitudes nunca más. Nunca más ningún departamento, ninguna nación. Yo siempre voy a repetir eso. Todos somos hermanos. Todos tenemos una sola sangre. Tal vez la vestimenta es diferente. La vestimenta es diferente, pero la sangre es una sola clase.
Quisiera comenzar por preguntarle, ¿usted ha sido discriminado antes de ser presidente y ahora que es presidente?
Sí, porque ahora más que antes.
Sí.
Cuando era dirigente, bueno, soportamos toda clase de acusaciones, terroristas, Evo Bin Laden andino, los cocaleros, los talibanes. Ahora de presidente, ya soy llama, soy mono, soy animal. Antes de la fundación de la República, muchos abuelos dieron su vida por esta patria. No solamente lucharon por nuestra identidad como originarios, como indígenas, sino por sus recursos naturales y sobre todo por la unidad. Tupac Katari ha pedido a los mestizos que se organicen en ellos en las ciudades y hacer una alianza de ellos originarios con ellos de la ciudad, del sector urbano. Nunca ha discriminado. Si nuestros abuelos nunca han discriminado.
Y ustedes como estudiantes universitarias, como jóvenes además, ¿cómo se ven ustedes racialmente? Si yo te veo de fuera, yo digo son indígenas.
A cabalidad como antes, no. Porque en parte hay personas que ya...
Los rasgos de la cara, el pelo.
Algunos, usted le hace la pregunta a otros compañeros, le dicen, no, yo no soy ni indígena, ni aymara, ni quechua, ni nada.
¿Por qué?
Porque tienen el ego de ser descendientes de españoles.
¿Eso es más importante o es mejor o qué es eso?
Para algunos sí.
Sí, para ti.
Para mí no.
Yo vengo de una familia campesina y he estudiado en la universidad, pero la universidad es la que forma así a los estudiantes, no a todos. Yo siento por la gente que realmente sufre en el campo.
Nuestro presidente no querían que sea un presidente.
No, ¿por qué?
Porque han dicho bien claro, es indio, lo han dicho.
¿A qué atribuye usted, por ejemplo, los hechos que se dieron el 24 de mayo del 2008 que horrorizaron al mundo con esas imágenes?
Todavía hay grupos de racistas, fascistas, o hijos o nietos de quienes expulsaron a Sucre, de Sucre. Sucre que dio su apellido y por las oligarquías después de la fundación de la República expulsaron.
Bueno, Verónica López.
Sí, buenas noches.
Estudiante de economía.
Sí.
Como boliviana, ¿cómo ves a los indígenas y a los campesinos?
Acá en Sucre nunca ha habido un racismo entre gente de la ciudad y gente del campo, nunca. Más bien acá siempre ha habido un respeto muy grande. Y yo te digo, cuando era chica, por ejemplo, cuando íbamos al campo con mis papás, siempre ha habido como una linda interacción entre ambos. Hasta que ahora ha empezado a haber este cambio social dentro de Bolivia, que empezó a crear un sentimiento de resentimiento que no viene de la gente de la ciudad a la gente del campo, es más de la gente del campo hacia la gente de la ciudad. Sin embargo, yo pienso que tendrían que haber proyectos para que esa gente no se la cambie, no se la vuelva gente de ciudad, sino tal vez darle más herramientas para que esa gente pueda ser más productiva para ellos mismos.
Todavía esa mentalidad de que aquí los indios, los indígenas no pueden estar en las ciudades. Peor todavía, que su hermano dirigente, ahora presidente, puede estar con políticas sociales, cómo tratar ambulancias. Cuando descuartizaron a Tupac Katari, era un escarmiento que no hayan indígenas rebeldes contra la dominación, con la explotación, contra el saqueo. No había. Entonces, el de Sucre es otro escarmiento. ¿Cómo es posible los indígenas van a estar marchando en la ciudad llamada Ciudad Blanca?
Mira a los hombres trabajando, ya no tienen la alegría de vivir, porque a su patria la quieren desunir, pero todos unidos tenemos que luchar.
Yo les digo, no llegaremos a estos extremos.
Como en Sucre, donde grupos citadinos agredieron hasta humillar a campesinos. Los problemas son los disturbios causados por la juventud crucenista, humillándonos a nuestra comunidad, asesinando la unidad,
gritando, muera raza maldita.
Por eso mismo digo no al racismo ni al fascismo.
Comenzamos trabajando de qué forma la comunicación podía permitir una visibilización diferente de los pueblos indígenas y una interpelación al Estado, a la sociedad.
¿Cómo han sido tratados los indígenas originarios y campesinas en los medios bolivianos?
La imagen de los pueblos indígenas originarios en los medios, en el cine, en general, ¿no? Se puede decir que ha sido una imagen muy estereotipada,
sí,
muy prejuiciosa, discriminatoria, que son torpes, que son flojos, que son sucios, que son malos, que son ladrones, que son... Creo que se comparten muchos estereotipos también con otros estratos de la sociedad, como por ejemplo,
con los afros, las mujeres.
Las mujeres. Y mujeres indígenas encima, ¿no? Que son pobres, o sea, tiene una discriminación muy fuerte en nuestra sociedad. Entonces sigue siendo esa construcción de imagen que hay que trabajar mucho.
Yo creo que les molesta nuestra protesta, que el pueblo ya no cree en sus mentiras, en sus cuentos. Es la razón de sus actos violentos, de sus aires de grandeza. Es una de sus armas para defender toda su riqueza. Riqueza que acumulan gracias al trabajo de hermanas y hermanos que trabajan muchos años. Y aún así, al originario, al campesino, al obrero, a la empleada en su casa, al zapatero, al mesero, al boceador, al cargador, a la cocinera y a la casera, a los tracachitos con el rostro tapadito, a todos ellos los ven de lejitos, no los quieren cerca, quizás les recuerda sus delitos, su macamaña.
A las casas, pues, a las casas.
La ley es igual para todos, sea rico, sea pobre, pero para el campesino no hay justicia. Estos los 5 años estuvimos en el juicio, nada.
Ojalá Diosito quería ahora para que hagamos justicia. Yo quería siempre a ellos tener que hacer castigo para ellos.
La oposición huye a la justicia boliviana y entonces nos dejan imposibilidad de acabar con esa impunidad porque está fuera del país y se pone el rostro de víctima y salen con todo ese cantar a los organismos internacionales, etcétera, cuando en realidad le deben al país una explicación y un proceso jurídico claro para que podamos llegar a la verdad. Nosotros vamos a seguir haciendo todo lo que esté en nuestras manos, desde la fiscalización, desde la denuncia, desde la búsqueda de la verdad, pero sabemos que no se ha cambiado en Bolivia todavía ese órgano judicial.
El tema de la ley 045 es un avance evidente, es un avance el que el Estado reconozca que existe discriminación y que tiene que tomar acciones concretas en torno al tema del racismo, pero si no existe la política pública, por ejemplo, sí, ¿no?, emanada de la ley o de otros instrumentos legales, otras normas, no podemos hacer nada. Y es por eso que sale justamente el Plan Nacional de Lucha contra el Racismo. Este Plan Nacional tiene cerca de 17 programas que justamente van a incidir en varios temas: sistema educativo, policía, fuerzas armadas, medios de comunicación, para eliminar el racismo de Bolivia, ¿no?
Fundada en los principios de interculturalidad
igualdad, equidad y protección, la Ley 045 decreta en su artículo 5: es deber del Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia definir y adoptar una política pública de prevención y lucha contra el racismo y toda forma de discriminación. Esta ley, que llega en el siglo XXI, debió esperar mucho tiempo. Año 1532. Con la conquista se somete por la fuerza a los pueblos originarios y se estructura una sociedad de castas basada en la raza. En la cima, los blancos usurpadores de las tierras y de las minas. En el medio, los mestizos o cholos, fundamentalmente artesanos. Y finalmente, en condiciones de subordinación, tanto material como cultural, la inmensa mayoría indígena. 4 de julio de 1825. El libertador Simón Bolívar emite un decreto en el Cusco, Perú, que ilustra las condiciones de servidumbre de los pueblos originarios, que ningún individuo del Estado exija directa o indirectamente el servicio personal de los indígenas sin que preceda un contrato libre del precio de su trabajo. 1826. Tras la independencia, es redactada la primera constitución que establece la igualdad civil de todos los bolivianos ante la ley. Aunque se proscribe la esclavitud y la sociedad de castas, en la práctica se mantienen las jerarquías sociales basadas en el color y la identidad étnica. Entre 1880 y 1932, la estructura simbólica colonial se profundiza. Los indígenas no solo continúan bajo un régimen de semiesclavitud, sino que se les excluye de toda participación en el poder político. Se explica con supuesta ciencia que el cerebro del indígena es más pequeño que el de los blancos, por lo tanto, no es capaz de comprender los fenómenos políticos como el progreso. Año 1952. Con el decreto del 21 de julio de 1952, se concede el derecho a voto a todos los bolivianos mayores de 21 años. De 18 años siendo casados, cualquiera sea su sexo, instrucción, ocupación o renta. La Revolución Nacional espera alcanzar una nación boliviana uniforme, donde todos dejaran sus particularidades étnicas para integrarse a la bolivianidad. Este intento homogeneizante de la sociedad desconoce las formas de organización y de pensamiento indígena. Año 2006. Evo Morales Ayma, dirigente sindical de ascendencia aymara, llega a la presidencia. Por primera vez en 500 años son reconocidas las formas de organización indígena como parte del proyecto nacional. Año 2007. La oposición vinculada a la clase históricamente dominante se atrinchera en las gobernaciones de las diferentes regiones para activar la resistencia al nuevo gobierno con discursos racistas. Desde las élites de Cochabamba, Tarija, Pando, Beni y Santa Cruz, se les endilga a los campesinos el atraso del país y se les atribuye vagancia, detención en el tiempo, ausencia de prácticas idóneas en la sociedad contemporánea, violencia e irracionalidad. Año 2008. El 24 de mayo, campesinos de varios municipios se reúnen en el Estadio Patria para recibir la donación de ambulancias por parte del gobierno nacional. Autoridades universitarias, municipales y gerentes mediáticos opositores al gobierno de Evo Morales organizan grupos de choque para boicotear la congregación campesina. Se ataca a los campesinos, que son perseguidos, golpeados, desnudados, obligados a enaltecer la ciudad de Sucre, arrodillándose y besando el suelo. Los acontecimientos son de tal magnitud que se establecerá el 24 de mayo como el Día Nacional contra el Racismo y toda forma de discriminación. 2 años después, en 2010, el diputado afroboliviano del Movimiento al Socialismo, Jorge Medina, junto con organizaciones de la sociedad civil y especialistas, diseña la Ley 045 contra el racismo y toda forma de discriminación, que es aprobada en el Congreso Nacional y se constituye en una herramienta efectiva para terminar con los ataques racistas que se han sostenido en Bolivia.
Senadora Piedad, bienvenida a la Cámara de Diputados. Este es el curul, exactamente, es desde donde se hace la incidencia y el trabajo para fortalecer las leyes que van en beneficio del país.
Mira, pero me llama la atención, esto es increíble. Pulsa el botón para traducción simultánea, entonces uno se imagina inglés, francés, resulta que es aymara, quechua y guaraní. Jorge, ¿y cómo se llega a la ley de discriminación?
Armamos esta ley, pero pensando en todos los bolivianos y las bolivianas. Presentamos, y llegó el proceso de socialización ya de la ley. Ahí es donde se armó el lío, porque se destapa la olla de verdad. Primero porque, claro, Bolivia tiene un presidente indígena, ¿no? Los insultos y todo, y cuando en la ley ponemos un candado, aquí no hay insultos, nos respetamos. Y claro, ¿quién presentaba la ley? Era un negro. ¿Y cómo a mí podían decirme que no hay racismo y que no hay discriminación? Sí. No había forma. Retrocedo un poquito atrás para dar estos ejemplos. Cuando miro de los Yungas, que es el territorio donde estamos los afrodescendientes, a la ciudad de La Paz, nos tropezamos con un problema del suerte negrito. Cuando tú caminabas y la gente te encontraba por la calle, suerte negrito, además se peleaban entre ellos. Yo lo he visto primero, suerte para mí, con una visión como si fuéramos amuletos que daríamos suerte. Y por otro lado, discúlpame, mi senadora, yo no oculto nada. Decía, los negros solamente son buenos para bailar, los negros son buenos para el deporte, son buenos y son buenos para el sexo, porque las mujeres negras son calientes y los hombres negros la tienen largo. Entonces, estas cosas estas cosas han sido que nos han llevado a trabajar este proyecto de ley. Hasta los que estaban en contra ahora se están agarrando de la ley.
Todos tienen derecho a pensar diferente, pero hoy en día los pueblos quieren paz, evidentemente paz con justicia social.
Ahora tú ya no puedes vociferar insultos racistas en la calle, ¿no? Y quedarte muy tranquilo, porque, bueno, hay una ley que te respalda, ¿no?
Yo diría, no quisiera que pase como esto, con lo que nos ha pasado, ninguna nación, ningún departamento, porque somos todos gentes, todos tenemos derechos, todos somos hermanos.
Infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on teleSUR. teleSUR features the developments of science and technology that innovate and make the world go around.
Eso es Atomum, transmitimos desde América Latina. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas.
Technology available to everybody. Atomum. Mondays, only on teleSUR. Different causes motivate people to look for new horizons. We'll have the right to move freely beyond the imposed walls. Imaginary lines are shown between the hostility towards some
y la oportunidad de otros para forjar nuevos caminos.
Buscamos la respuesta a las inquietudes del siglo XXI.
Between borders. Thursdays, only on teleSUR. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on teleSUR.
Se llamaba John Reed. Sus amigos lo llamaban Jack. Y muy pronto, lo van a llamar Juanito. El muchacho rebelde va a necesitar un espacio. Y hay algo que está sonándole en la cabeza, que es la necesidad de volver a un periodismo políticamente comprometido con las historias, pero además meterse en el centro de la acción. Y hay un nombre que empieza a sonar en la cabeza de John Reed, que es Pancho Villa. Y decide irse a México. Reed no viene por Villa, ¿no? Tengo esa sensación. Que Reed viene por los peones sublevados, la mítica imagen, muy poco coherente y muy poco consistente. Muy pronto va a encontrar a Villa, el gran rebelde social, y hay que ir más a fondo para descubrirlo. Es la gran virtud de Reed, que es el primero que sabe tocar las cuerdas para entender a Pancho. ¡Anda! Ahí está John Reed, tú. Viene avanzando por esta vía hacia Chihuahua, donde le espera una revolución en marcha. ¡Chuy! Es como Pancho Villa, compadre. Cuando a Pancho Villa le tocaba en su casa, salía por la puerta de atrás. ¡Jesús! ¡Sal! ¿Qué hubo? Estamos ahí aporreando la pinche puerta.
No te dejo la puerta abierta siempre. ¿Qué pues? ¿Qué dices? ¿Qué decías que querías ver
una edición de John Reed
de
México Insurgente, porque la bronca que vamos a tener es que los reportajes no se corresponden con el libro. Entonces he estado checando los reportajes,
¿sí?
Pero no se corresponden. Cuando él arma México Insurgente, él la arma como quiere.
Aquí está todo lo que tenemos de
John Reed.
De John Reed. Esta es de 1914, bueno, es
la fecha en la que la hace.
Como que es la reedición de la del 14.